Hey, how y'all doing? Today we're looking at Minion from HackTheBox, and this is a box that's almost 5 years old at this point. But as I'm going through and trying to get write-ups out for all the machines I did before I had a blog, this is one of them. And so taking a look at it, it's an incredibly hard machine, and what makes it so hard is you find a web shell pretty quickly using a server-side request forgery, and but the problem is that all you get back is the exit code of what you run. So you don't get any you get execution, but you can't actually see the results. Okay, no problem. We'll just get a reverse shell. Well, nothing except for ICMP is allowed outbound on the box. So I've got a Windows box where I can run commands and ping myself, and that's it. And so we're going to write a Python script that's going to do the following things. It's going to behave like a terminal. So I'm going to be able to, it's going to give me a prompt. I can type in commands, hit enter. It's then going to take that command and generate a long string of PowerShell code. And that PowerShell code will run that command, and then it will generate a ping object, take the output of the command, break it up into small enough pieces that the output will fit in a ping packet, and then send home pings back to me with the body of the ping being the output of the command, where my Python script will pick up that, will be listening for pings from the Minion host and print them out to the screen. So effectively, I'm going to type in, who am I? It's going to go up to Minion, run, come back over the course of a ping, and then print out on my screen. It'll kind of just feel like I have a shell. With that, we will go ahead and dive in. All right. So our scenario is this: we've got this. We got a server-side request forgery that we're able to load up an internal application where I can basically do this, and if I can get to this internal application. So by visiting this test.asp and then loading localhost 80 cmd.aspx, when I send a command here, it doesn't work through the form because of the way I'm loading it. But if I come in here and do xcmd equals who am I, it gives me nothing but the exit status. So exit 0 is success. If I change this to a command that doesn't exist, it returns a failure. So we believe we have code execution here. We can test this further by tcp dump minus I 10 ICMP. We'll listen for pings, and we will ping 10 10 14 6, and we get 5 pings. On Windows, I don't have to specify a number. I could make it less, but Windows will do 5 by default, unlike Linux, where you want to make sure you always specify a number because otherwise it goes infinitely, and if you do it through like a web shell, you can start to hang processes and things. So anyway, I've got command execution. I can ping myself. I'm not going to show here. I walked through this in the blog post, but we can't get anything else out. All other outbound traffic seems to be blocked. So we just have ICMP. And so the goal for here today, as I talked about in the intro, is we're going to figure out how to get data out in ICMP. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to go into Python and we're going to use Scapy. So from scapy.all import star. In general, import star is not the greatest. You want to probably try to avoid it, but Scapy, that's just like how you're supposed to do it. So we're going to go with it. And so then Scapy, one of the things we just imported is a thing called sniff. And we'll do count equals 1, just get 1 packet. So we're just testing. Filter equals ICMP. And that's a filter just like this filter up here. And then we need to do a iFace to tell it where to listen. Return 0. And okay. So operation not permitted. We're not running as root here. I'm running as OXDF, and I don't have permission. So I could give myself like capabilities on the Python binary. In this case, it's easier just to go ahead and probably safer too to go ahead and just run that with sudo. So I will import again, and I will sniff again. So now when we refresh the same page, do I need to refresh without cache? Here we go. So we got a packet here. Oops, what I should really do is capture that packet. Let's go ahead and refresh here again. And so now what is X? X is a sniffed packet here. It's a sniffed set of packets with 1 ICMP packet and nothing else. If I do X sub 0, I get the actual packet itself. So you can see this is the IP stuff. And then here's ICMP layer, and then inside of there is the raw payload. In this case, the payload is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way through to W, and then back to here. This is what the standard ping payload looks like by default. It just includes that body, but you can customize it. And so that's what we're going to take advantage of. We're going to run commands on this host in PowerShell and then generate ping packets that come back. We're going to capture them with Scapy and print them to the screen. So first thing we need to do is figure out how to get a hold of this packet. So we want to go ahead and get the raw part. So we'll do that, and that looks good. And then we can do .load to get the load, and we'll .decode to get that back to a string. So that looks pretty good. We can do that now. Let's go ahead and we'll go into a new prompt here, and we will start making our script. So we'll call this ICMP shell.py, and we'll start with our shebang. Python 3. We will from Scapy .all import star, and we will also from CMD import CMD, so we can make our terminal. CMD is a library I've shown before. It's just my go-to for when I need to make myself like a little interactive command prompt. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and just define our prompt. So we will do class term, and that's going to subclass CMD. And I like to do, I'm not sure why it's not giving me spacing. That's annoying. We will do prompt equals Minion this. And what are we going to do here? So we'll need a, I guess we'll go ahead and do def default self. And what are we going to start with? So we need to next go with, well, just to make sure we got it working, we will just, oops, it's actually going to be self comma args. We'll go ahead and print args like that. And this will be just to make sure we're working okay. And then we need our, at the end of our last thing to make the thing work, we create a term object like this. We will try sys. Actually, I might have shown it's necessary. We'll just do term.cmd loop except keyboard interrupt, and this is what allows me to control C inside of here, and we will just print a new line and move on. Let's try that out. So we can do Python ICMP shell. We've got our thing here. If we say hello, it prints hello. If we say please subscribe, we get please subscribe. Okay. So whatever we put in here is going to the default. The way CMD works is it's going to look and see if there's a function called do please or do hello and try to run that. If there's not, it's going to catch it in the default function where the entire line is passed in as args. And so I can then work off args here. And that's what I've got. So that looks pretty good. Now let's go ahead and use this to capture. What I'm going to do basically is I'm going to come in here and let's go one more down. Def init self, and we are going to the first thing you do, we're going to override the init function so that we can do some stuff on init. First thing you want to do is call super. Go ahead and get the init off the parent, because by defining init we stomp over it, and we want to definitely run all that stuff because that's what makes this term happen. But now with that in place, we will do, let's come up here and we're going to generate a thread. So we'll go import threading. And now down here we can do thread equals threading.thread. So we need a target equals self.listen thread. We'll need to define that. Args equals nothing. We don't, there we go. And now we can do thread.daemon equals true, and this will allow it to run the background. And then we can do thread.start and run it. So now we need to define, actually we'll do it up here, def listen thread self, and that's it. And our listen thread is going to do exactly what we saw here. Now there's one thing I didn't show you that we can do. So if we do a sniff like this, let's see. If we come up here and do sniff, we take out the count, or we set the count high. Like let's set it to 100. And then there's another function called prn equals lambda x print x, like that. And what that's going to do is it's going to say every time I get a packet that matches my filter, I'm going to call this function and on that packet. So if we run that, come back up here and we refresh again, you can see it's printing out these packets. Now, interestingly, maybe we'll figure this out now. You can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 coming in. Interesting. I kind of thought there'd be 10 or 5. Let's real simply come in here and we'll do -n1. We're just going to send one packet. Oops. Try this again. And you see, so it generates 2. And that is the inbound request and the outbound, the echo request and the echo response coming out. So we can change our sniff to be this and source 10, 10, 10, 57. And now we're only going to get the requests coming in from the server because we don't really care about what I send back, right? In fact, I could turn that off if I wanted to be really careful about it, but it's fine. We'll leave it. We'll leave it like this. So let's grab this whole line. In fact, we'll go back here, and in this thread, all we're going to do is start sniffing, and we want to sniff indefinitely, so we're not going to set a count. And we're going to get rid of this, and we'll put an actual function there. So we'll put in handle ICMP. And now, oops, I better make it self.handle ICMP. Def handle ICMP self packet, because it's going to pass in the packet. And now, so we go back here to where do we figure out how to make this look good? We want this right here. We don't need the 0 because we're just gonna get, this was a list of packets, but here we're getting, so we needed to get just one of them. So we really want this right here. Print pkt like that. So we get the raw, we get the load, we get the decode. Let's give this a try. No thing listen thread. Oh, I didn't. Okay, so I'm trying to start the thread listen thread, and I don't have a function called listen thread. I have a function called list thread, so we'll make that listen. Try again. Okay, permissions, not permitted again. We're gonna have to still run this as root. And so here we go. Now, it looks like it's, eventually we're gonna add something where we actually do something, but let's come over here real quick and just see if so right now we get in the background every time we run this. When the pings come in, we're gonna get this. So that's pretty cool. Now we're getting to now we want to get to the point where I generate the pings not through here, but through my script. So we'll come back here and we'll go back to our default. Get rid of print args because we don't want that to be our case anymore. So we want it to be, let's just start with, we'll just grab this whole thing. We're going to need requests. So we make web requests. Like that. And then we'll come down here under request.get. We could leave that whole thing like that for now. So now anything we type, it's ignored, but it's going to run. It should generate a single ping. So let's try that out. So if I say hello, I get a ping. If I say goodbye, I get a ping. Because no matter, it's ignoring the args thing here, and just each time I do that, it's sending this request to generate a single ping. And then we're reading the response back. So we're getting close here. We now are to the point where we can send a ping, send a web request to this, in fact, through multiple websites, and then have the response come back and hit us in an ICMP packet. So that's super cool. Now we need to change it up a little bit, and we want to try to figure out how to send data in an ICMP packet. And so I'm actually going to pause the video real quick and spin up my Windows VM. I just realized I did not do that. So pause for a second here. I'll be back in a second. All right, I'm back. So I've got my, got Windows VM here. I can, let's see, IP config. This is 10.111.63 config, and we're looking at 10.111.64. So that's good. Oops, let's see. INF config, what was the, it's INS, there we go. And let's grab this real quick. Get out of here. We're going to go back here and we're going to update this script so that it listens on the other interface that, and we will make this source from 10.1.1.164. I said that was 3. Sweet. I'm 4. And we will now only listen for packets coming from there. Let's go ahead and give that a try, make sure it still works. If I do ping 10.1.1.163, nope, 164. I'm getting it's working. So it is capturing the pings from here. That's exactly what we wanted to happen. That's good. All right, so the next thing we need to do is figure out how to actually run PowerShell that will put some command, get the results, and then put the results into ping. And so if we come back up here, we can look up Windows, PowerShell, ping. Let's see if we can find it. Test connection is not what I'm looking for. There's a ping object. Let's see, I think it's in system.net.network. Pinging with PowerShell, is this going to have it? Yeah, so here we go. This is going to generate the ping object. And then eventually we call the .send function. Let's see if we can find, it'd be nice to find here, ping class, that looks good. Yeah, this is all looking very C-sharpy. Let's do ping .send maybe. Here we go, ping.send method. And so you can see the different options here, and it takes in a string, which is the IP address, a timeout time, the buffer you want to send in as the body, and then an options object. So I'll show you how. We'll go ahead and assemble that over. Let's see, we'll go ahead and assemble that here. And I'm just going to leave this up so whatever I send will just show up over here. So again, if we will do $sign ping equals new. Better do a new object. My tab complete on Windows is pretty weak. So we want to do system.net.network information.ping, like that. And then we can do ops equals new object system. Oopsie, that's I'm very used to Linux where it won't go past any conflict versus here it will go it's crazy. So ping options, and we want to set our ops dot don't frag equals true. So that's just going to keep it so that our payload stays within one fragment. And then let's see. So the first thing we're going to want to do is try to send, let's see, we can do a ping.send. Oh, we need a buffer. So we can try to send a string. I don't think that's going to work. So we can do 10.1.1.164. Like that. All right. Am I losing the? Yep. And then we can do a timeout of like 5 seconds. And then we need the body. So we can do like hello world. And then we need the op like that. And that's, I think, going to fail. Yeah. So it's saying it's got arguments for a buffer, but it's got the value hello world, and it cannot convert that value to a system or to a byte array. And so we need to convert that to a byte array, and that is done by, let's see, we do system dot text dot encoding. Oh, did I start tabbing too soon? Oops, there it was, encoding. And then we do ASCII dot get bytes. And around hello world like that. And not only, now, cool. That worked here because you can see it worked, but also over here you can see hello world came back. So we sent a ping from here and it came back. And so now we can start to think about like, how do we want to actually run data, right? So let's come up here and we can do something like data equals, start to pull this out, copy paste like that. And then we'll come over here and we'll replace all of this with data. And then again, just for baby steps, we'll make sure it still works. It does. So now we can get rid of hello world, do like res, and we'll do res equals, and we can IEX, what's the way to do this? What's the syntax here? It's IEX command, I believe. And then who am I? And then we got to make sure we do out string like that, I believe. Cool. Okay. So here, what I did was, if I just do who am I, the result is like this desktop blah 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 and oxdf, and so that gets saved as res. Res gets encoded as data, and then data gets sent back as the payload, and then right here you can see the result. So we're starting to get to what this might look like. That's pretty cool. We're going to run into an error when, let's do this. We can do cmd equals who am I, and then we can come over here and get rid of this. CMD still works, looking good. Okay, so now what happens if we do CMD dir $C like that? That's actually looking pretty good. All right, I was kind of thinking that might fail, but it didn't. Let's see, what if I do dir program files? Here we go. Oops, that didn't work. Why didn't that? Because we need this, that. I think we might have choked out a little bit there. Let's come back here and try that again. Okay, so here, I tried to send, but instead of, it's responding with this packet too big. And that is not, so it can't send once it gets above a certain size. So we're going to go ahead and set up a loop here to do this. So we get our data, that's fine. Before we send the ping, we're going to say like $i equals 0. And then we'll say while $i is less than $, what would we call data.length? And then we will open up something like this, and we'll say, first we're going to send it. So we're going to send this. We're going to send this from data sub $i dot $i plus $step. That. And we'll come up here at the top and we'll define what $step is. See what we can do. I think 1,000 will work fine. Be big. We want to be as big as we can just to reduce the number of packets, right? We could send it one byte at a time, but that just takes forever. And then after we do this, we need to do $i plus equals $i plus $step. So now what we're going to do is we're going to send 1,000, take 1,000 bytes and send it, and then we're going to increment I and start and do the next. So let's see what happens if we do that. Okay, so it's not, oh, that's PowerShell is not my strongest. Let's see. We don't do that. We do less than like that. Cool, that worked. Now, one thing I'm noticing here is we're getting these extra new lines here. And that's because we're printing. See, we'll come up here when we do this print right here, we're printing, and the print includes a new line, so we can do end equals like that. Let's see if that makes it look nicer. Yeah, looking pretty good. It's not like there's a few weirdnesses, like why is IDA stepped in one, and like what was it, Windows Advanced Threat Protection is in here like this. That's a little weird, but oh no, we're making it look pretty good here. So what are we actually running here? We're running this stuff. So let's go ahead and grab this whole thing, and we will come back here, and we'll come up here. Let's come up to the top. We can define this as a what are we gonna call this? CMD payload equals. I don't know what kind of. I think I'm going to use triple quotes here just so I can make sure I'm safe here. So we don't CMD equals, and we will get rid of all of this. And I'm going to leave a placeholder here, just empty. We'll call this CMD. And now later I can use the format command to just fill that in. So the rest of this doesn't really need to change. We want to set this IP address back. So this is going to be 10.10 14.6, and the rest of that looks good. So we'll come down here, and we will, under here, now change this to cmd equals self dot, I don't forget what I called it. I call it cmd? cmd payload. Payload, self dot cmd payload, payload dot format. We do cmd equals args. So now what this is going to do is when I call this default function, it's going to get this string and it's going to replace that right there with whatever I pass in as args, and then the rest, that'll get the whole thing formatted how I want it. And then we can come up here to our request, and let's see, we can get rid of that. We can put this in here as cmd, make this an f string so that fills in. And so now that should send that request over to them. And if we get really lucky, we'll have code execution right now. So we'll kill that, run it again. Who am I? Let's see. So getting a term has no attribute do him. Okay, so this is actually not, this right here is not an error at all. This is just how CMD handles things. It tries to call do who am I, and when do who am I doesn't exist, it throws this attribute error, which it then catches by calling the default function. And so that's what we're in. And so while it's handling that exception, which is totally expected and planned, it's having this new exception, which is that it's a key error on ping. Let's see what that is. Where do we have ping? Oh, okay. So when you call format, it's looking for pairs of squiggly brackets. This I actually need. This is like a raw squiggly bracket. So I need to actually escape that. And the way you do that is by putting two squigglies like that. So now that should work. At least that problem should be solved. Okay, so if I run who am I get nothing back. I was worried that might happen. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on. One thing we might want to do is look at base 64 encoding this, because who knows what characters are getting chewed up in the being sent. Because you gotta remember, we're actually bouncing through two web servers. We're going to this web server, which is then doing something that's passing it on to this web server. So we're almost certainly getting messed up there. Oh, the other thing we're doing is we're not necessarily running PowerShell. Let's start with that. We want to come in here and do PowerShell -c command. Let's try that real quick and just see if it happens to work. I don't think it's going to, but yeah, okay, so that didn't work. Let's do this. Let's come in here and we'll do come up here and do import base 64. And we can do in fact, we can just do this here. Base 64.b64 encode that. And actually, I think we're going to need to go ahead. Windows like 16-bit, so we're going to do encode UTF-16LE like that. So now it takes our string, it encodes it in the 16-bit format that Windows likes. It then base 64 encodes it to give us a command. And then let's see, we're going to run PowerShell. Now this time we're going to actually change this to ENC for encoded command, and then put the command there. Try that. Who am I? Still no luck. All right, let's come back up here and see if we can figure out what's going wrong. And CMD. I wonder, I actually have an idea here. I wonder if it's the encoding. So I wonder if we are getting screwed up when we try to, like, is there a plus in here? Because that would break things for sure. Plus these spaces might even be breaking things. I don't know if requests is actually encoding that. Let's put that here. That. I wonder if we need to decode this. Let's hang for a minute. Is that a good thing? I don't know. All right, let's see. Let's do this. We are gonna from URL lib parse import quote. We might even need to well, we've been sniffing on the wrong interface, so these might all be working and we're not noticing. Let's try this again. Oops. Okay, so that's not, it didn't return anything. Break this up a little bit here. We're gonna do cmd equals self.cmd format args, and then we will do enc cmd equals quote. I'm actually going to do this twice, and the reason I'm going to do this twice is it's going to get decoded twice. First, when it hits this server, it's going to decode all of this stuff. Then when it hits this server, it's going to decode all of this stuff. So I'm going to do quote twice. And then I'm going to do base64.b64 encode, cmd.encode, utf 16le, like that. Like that. Okay, so I've encoded command. Let's print that. And then we will come in here and run PowerShell PNC like that. Still no love there. Let's see, what could we be doing wrong? We have default. We get our encoded command. We get that. I wonder if we have checked that we can even just generate a ping. Let's do this. Close that off, and we'll just do request.get cmd.exe xcommand equals ping.101014.6. I think we've done this, but I'm trying, when you get stuck like this, you kind of just got to go back to basics and like try things again. So now if I type something, whatever I type, it should ping me. And I did get the ping here. Looks like I got like 5 pings. Oh, okay. So one thing you'll notice is this printed, and then these 5 pings all showed up like right at once and all stacked on top of each other. And that could be because, let's see, when I do this print, where do I print here? With end like this. If I don't do, when you don't have a new line, it often won't flush standard out. So you can do something like standard out.flush like that to make sure that even though you're not putting a new line out there, you want it to make sure it goes to this terminal. Let's see. Let's just try. I think this is still doesn't matter. Now you can see they're showing up one by one. That's more like what we're looking for. So let's come back up here. I don't think that's going to solve our problem necessarily, but let's see if that happens too. Okay, so but I think that's important. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Zoom in here. Come up here and look at our PowerShell and see if it makes sense still. Equals 1,000, result equals that. One of the things I thought I was going to run into that I didn't necessarily, I wonder if we can find, I don't know if this is going to matter, but I thought that it might throw errors if this is bigger than the length of data. And so one thing I've done in the past that I'm surprised I didn't have to do when I was trying here was to measure object max maximum like that dot max minimum. That's not even going to do anything. What's never mind, that's not useful. Let's see. So that's not going to fix anything. So I guess we could test and see if it's an issue with my sniffer or with the command. I mean, this was a really hard box, and this is the part that got really hard. I think I'm going to pause for a second and not make you watch me stare at this and just see if I can figure out what's wrong. I stared at this for longer than I'm proud to admit before I realized I'm definitely missing code here. So come back here. That all was there, but I did some stuff up here to create this stuff. So I need to define all of these other objects, right? So we can just grab all of this, come over here. It's going to paste ugly, I think, but that's fine. We'll clean it up in a second. So command equals that. So we need to come in here and we need to define ping. We didn't create ping. We need to define ops because we're passing in an empty variable there. And we need to set the ops to don't fragment. That is definitely a silly error. I'll get rid of all that. See if that puts us in a better place. Oh, and there we go. That was it. Man, y'all got to watch me do something dumb today. So let's get rid of this and we'll clean up a little bit and look at what we got here. We don't need to print this anymore. Right. We'll get rid of that, run in here. So now let's check it out. So we run who am I? It sends the command up there. It's running and ICMP packs are coming back and we've got back IIS app pool, default app pool. That is pretty cool. So we can do, what if we do dir c:? Let's make this full screen. We can see it. And there we go. We have the c:, directory listing. And yeah, I mean, so this is it. Our shell works. Again, we got stuck for longer than we needed to there, but really it just went back to what I was doing while I was gone, was just staring through the lines one by one and being like, okay, what happens when this PowerShell executes? And I realized eventually that I never defined ping. So we can do things like, I don't know if we can see temp. We might not temp something. Yeah, normally users often can't see into that, but we could do see users. I don't know if I need a trailing slash or not. Probably not. Yeah, so we can see this the users on the box. So we have a shell here. Can we read decoder.minion? Is there a user.text we can read? Probably not as IIS user. Yeah, okay. So, but there, we have a shell. So let's just kind of do a wrap up real quick here and review what we have in this shell, because it's pretty cool. We're basing this all off of a CMD class. So we define our class term, and then we can define, in this case, the only function we really define as part of it is the default function. So it's going to handle whatever we put in. And then we come down here, we create our term object, we tell it to run this command loop, and we allow ourselves to control C out of it. We have our init here, and our init is going to start a thread. That's really all it does is call the super init and then start this thread. And in this thread, it's going to start a Scapy sniffer that's going to listen for any ICMP traffic coming from Minion. It's going to listen to interface ton0, and whenever for each packet it finds, it's going to pass it to self.handle ICMP. Self.handle ICMP, not complicated. It just takes the packet, it gets the raw.load, decodes it, and prints it with no end, and calls standard.flush to make sure that prints to the screen. And so now in the background, we've got this thread that's just listening for ICMP from Minion, and anytime it sees it, it's going to print the payload. So now we come down here, and whenever we put a command in, it's going to take that command and it's going to come up here into this PowerShell, and it's going to fill it in right here. And basically it's going to take the command. It defines steps. It defines this ping object. It defines options. It sets the don't fragment option. It then gets the results of the command by running iex-command using the input command here, saving it as a string in res. It then encodes that into data. It then sets I equal to 0 and loops over basically the length of that data array, sending up to step bytes at a time as pings with the data there, and which is then picked up by the listeners and printed to the screen. This is not like the perfect shell. In just a previous box I did, Inception, I wrote a forward shell, which is some really cool ways of getting like a persistent state shell. And I don't have that here. I could probably have this PowerShell rather than constantly just taking, being sent up every time. I could probably send something up where I send commands out in the ICMP responses, but that feels like a lot of work, and I can enumerate the box pretty well from here. As you can see, I get up arrow and down arrow from the command class. That's pretty cool. I don't get tab completion. That's a bummer, but yeah. So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and call it a video. Thanks for sticking around to the end. It's got a little bit long and some little troubleshooting, but hopefully it was useful, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks.